If you give 8 hours a day to work and 0 to yourself, don't be surprised that nothing changes from year to year. I realized this too late, when I had only coins in my pocket and a ton of excuses in my head. But one day my mentor told me, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And that changed everything. In this video, I'll show how even wage labor can be turned into a springboard to wealth. And at the end, practical steps that change the course of each day. Don't miss it. Have you ever felt like you were trapped? You wake up, go to work, complete all your duties, and by evening you feel exhausted, but no closer to the life you truly want. This is the paradox of modern life. We work more and more and live less and less. But there's an even deeper paradox that once changed my life. Are you ready for it? Here it is. You can work for someone else and still build your own freedom. This isn't about quitting your job tomorrow. It's about the decision today to start working on yourself, not just on someone else's task list. I was once an employee too, and to be honest, not a very successful one. I was short on money, drowning in debt, and the future seemed either blurry or like it belonged to someone else. One day, my mentor, Mr. Schoaf, looked at me and said, "Jim, if you don't change, nothing around you will change." That's when I first heard his core principle: work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And one day, you'll earn not just a paycheck, but freedom, lifestyle, and choice. Today, I'm going to show you how to do that, even if you can't quit your job. Because it's not about the job, it's about the mindset. You know where it all begins? With one single look in the mirror, but not to fix your hair, to ask yourself, well, who am I becoming every day while I work? That's exactly the kind of question my mentor once made me ask myself. Not what am I doing, not how much am I getting paid, but who am I becoming? Because here's the truth. Your job isn't just a source of income, it's your daily training ground, your field for growth, your challenge. I remember those days when I showed up to work thinking, here's another day, another pile of tasks that have nothing to do with my future. And you know what happened next? Nothing. No breakthroughs, no transformation. Because I thought my job was just about responsibilities, just about checking boxes. But then one day I heard, Jim, your job doesn't limit your growth, it reveals it. And that's when I did something new. I started using my job as a gym for building character. Let's be honest, most people think if I had my own business, I'd grow. But no, it's not about the business, it's about you. If today you're not using every conversation, every challenge, every mistake as an opportunity, you won't become who you want to be, even if you become the CEO. And that's where real transformation begins. I started asking myself new questions, not how can I get through today without stress, but how can I use today's meeting to improve my communication skills? Not how can I finish this task quickly, but how can I put into this task a trait I want to develop? Discipline, patience, precision. My paycheck didn't change right away, but I did. And as soon as I changed, new opportunities started showing up. One day I was asked to speak in front of the team. It wasn't part of my job, but I agreed. Why? Because I wanted to become a better communicator. I used that job, that moment, as a stepping stone, not as a chore, as a chance. And soon people started to notice. I got invited more often, and before long I was teaching others. Not because I was the smartest, but because I worked on myself while doing the job. That's the formula I want to share with you. You don't need to change everything around you. You don't need to run away from the office or start a business just to grow. While you're at work, even in a routine job, you can build yourself. And then life begins to shift. People start noticing you. Opportunities begin to appear. Why? Because you're not just working for the company, you're working for yourself. Now let me ask, have you ever used your job as a laboratory, or are you, like I once was, just getting through your work days? Believe me, it's a fine line, but it's a defining one. The one who just gets through burns out. The one who uses builds strength. You know what else I called it? I started paying myself a second income, growth. And that income, my friends, isn't taxed. It grows daily. If I learned a new skill, that was my investment. If I trained self-control when I wanted to explode, I became more valuable as a person. And you know what? The market feels value. Promotions, offers, new projects, they show up where maturity shows up. So here's my challenge to you. Tomorrow, when you go to work, try seeing it differently. See it not as a source of exhaustion, but as a mental gym. Every conversation, a chance to strengthen empathy. Every deadline, a challenge for your organization skills. Every difficult colleague, a reason to grow in wisdom. This isn't just a concept, it's a strategy, a breakthrough strategy from employment without quitting. But that's not all. In the second part, we'll go deeper. I'll show you how my journey from a frustrated employee to a world-class speaker was a direct result of this formula. We'll uncover why a paycheck isn't a limit, but just a starting point, and how even the most thankless job can become the greatest investment in your future. So stay with me. The best is yet to come. Let me tell you what this looked like in my life. I was just an ordinary employee, and at 25, I had debts, disappointment, and no clear plan. My first job, a sales assistant in a retail company. The pay was low, and it seemed like there were no opportunities for growth. But that's when I made one of the most important decisions of my life, to stop looking for opportunities around me and start looking for them within myself. I remember one evening standing in the warehouse with a box in my hands thinking, is this really my life? I'm capable of more. But at that moment, I recalled Mr. Schoaf's words, don't complain about the company, grow yourself so much that you become the company. And I started. Every day after my shift, I devoted an hour to reading, not to escape reality, but to prepare for a new one. I started studying sales, motivation, psychology, personal productivity, and most importantly, I began practicing it in my own job. They gave me simple tasks, and I did them with the focus of a craftsman, not for management, not for praise, but to build a new quality in myself. When others said, that's not my job, I said, this is my opportunity. And you know what happened? People noticed. But more importantly, I started to see a different version of myself. I was given more responsibility. Then I started training new employees. Then I was invited to speak to the team, and each of those moments wasn't a promotion in title, it was a breakthrough in mindset. I often say, don't wait to be given a chance. Create a situation where a chance can't miss you. This isn't just a catchy phrase, it's what I did. I became valuable not because I became a manager, I became a manager because I became valuable. And here's the key. I was still an employee. I still had a contract, a schedule, limitations. But internally, I was no longer working for someone else. I was working for myself. And that changed everything. I had a purpose. My day was no longer 9 to 5. And it became a field for daily investment. And one day I realized I'm no longer the person I was a year ago, and no one gave me that. I created it myself. This reminds me of another story, familiar to anyone who dreams of more but feels stuck. I had a colleague named Tom. We worked together. He would constantly say, I hate this job, every day the same thing, frustration, discouragement, complaints. One day I asked him, Tom, are you investing in yourself at all? Reading, building skills, learning anything new? He replied, why would I if I'm stuck here? And that was the whole point. Because those who wait for the perfect moment usually never start, and those who begin building with what they have create perfect moments on their own. I saw people with no starting resources begin developing soft skills, public speaking, financial literacy, without waiting for a better position, and eventually those people became leaders, mentors, entrepreneurs, and those who waited kept waiting. Another realization, your salary is just a reflection of your market value. And if the mirror shows little, don't smash the mirror. Build your value. You can't force the world to pay you more, but you can become someone the world can't afford not to pay more. Mr. Schoaf once told me, Jim, if you want more money, become more valuable. If you want recognition, be someone impossible to ignore. If you want freedom, be someone who can handle it. And you know what? I took that as my personal action plan. I began thinking not like an employee, but like an investor in myself. I would analyze what I could improve this week. I made plans. I studied my mistakes. And one day I was invited to speak at a large gathering. It was the first public recognition of my transformation. But it didn't happen by accident. It was the result of daily internal work. Now tell me, what does your day look like today? Do you see a challenge or just a routine? Are you using it or just getting through it? Because hidden in every workday, even the simplest one, is the code to your breakthrough. But you have to decode it. You won't see it when you're on autopilot. You'll only see it once you've awakened. And one more thing, don't wait for a promotion to elevate yourself. Promotions come to those who have already grown from within. And if it doesn't come, you already have everything you need to rise to a new level on your own. In part 3, we'll go even deeper. I'll show you how to build this philosophy into your daily life through habits, discipline, and micro actions. I'll share what exactly helped me stay on this path without burning out or giving up. And in the end, a practical section, a step-by-step plan to transform employment into internal breakthrough, so don't miss it. There's one question I ask everyone who comes to me saying, I feel stuck. And I look them in the eye and say, Tell me 3 habits you practice every single day, ones that are definitely leading you to your ideal self. And most often, silence. Because in our race for results, we forget that it's habits that shape us, not plans or promises. A simple thought once saved me: success isn't an achievement, it's the result of consistent inner development. I remember a morning when I woke up in a terrible mood. It was gray, cold, and I felt drained. And I remembered, today's my first public presentation for a new team. The old Jim would have said, I'm not in the right mindset. The new Jim remembered that discipline isn't an emotion, it's a decision. I took a shower, reviewed my notes, got dressed, and delivered one of the best trainings of my life. And you know why? Because I chose based on my goal, not my mood. And that's what I tell everyone: either you run your day or your day runs you. That's why I started building rituals into my life. Waking up with intention, reading in the morning, a short visualization before work. Not to tick boxes, but to set my mind on what matters. I'm not just working, I'm building my inner strength. Many have asked me, Jim, how do you avoid burnout when you're working for someone else but building yourself? And I've answered, you don't burn out when you light yourself up every day with purpose, vision, perspective. When you have a why, you can handle any how. And here's what's interesting. Even if your job isn't ideal, it can become a mirror for your personal growth strategy. You can't change everything around you? Fine. But you can change how you respond, how you think, how you use your time. I once wrote on a piece of paper, I'm an investor. Every action I take is an investment in my future self. And you know what happened? I stopped thinking in terms of work hours and started thinking in terms of capital. And if I calmly resolved a conflict, that was a deposit in the resilience bank. If I prepared a presentation above expectations, that was a deposit in the professional reputation bank. If I read 1 page of a book, that was a deposit in the knowledge bank. And those banks, friends, pay interest. One day they pay out in the form of breakthrough. I've seen people give up, not because the work is hard, but because it feels meaningless. But meaning is your responsibility. If I had waited for my first job to inspire me, I'd still be selling low-cost products, but I turned it into a tool, and that's a choice anyone can make. One of my students once said, I work in a dead-end office job, but every day when I learn something new, practice public speaking in meetings, help colleagues, I feel like this is no longer just work, it's my training camp. And later he was invited to become a coach in a completely different field, not because he had experience, but because he grew so much that experience became secondary. Here's another metaphor that helped me. You're either building yourself or letting life build someone else in your place. It sounds harsh, but it's the truth. Because in a world that's constantly changing, your only real stability is your inner development. I repeat this everywhere. You don't need to quit your job to start a new life. You need to quit your old mindset. The job doesn't hold you back. Indifference does. The job doesn't limit you. Lack of purpose does. And when you change these beliefs, a new space opens up. You know what I still do, even after all my success? I keep a journal, and in it I ask myself every day, what did I do today to be better than yesterday? Because if the answer is nothing, the day was wasted. But if I did something, congrats. That's one more step toward a new me. Here's what I want you to take with you. Success isn't an event, it's an identity. And every choice you make either reinforces that identity or breaks it down. You can work in an office, at a factory, in a store, but if you're building yourself, you're already on the path to wealth, because wealth isn't just money, it's confidence, competence, and freedom of thought. Before we dive into the practical section, let me leave you with one last thought. I know you're waiting for tools, but remember, the best tool is you. Once you start taking action, and no plan works unless you do. Now it's time to move on to specific questions that will help you view your daily work from a new perspective. And remember, this part isn't just a conclusion, it's the countdown to a new level of quality. So don't stop now. And now, my friend, let's take a pause, not to stop but to go deeper. Because without an honest conversation with yourself, no idea will ever take root. I want you to answer 5 simple but powerful questions, from 1 to 10, where 1 means I don't agree at all, and 10 means I fully live this out in my life. Don't pause the video, just listen and feel your answer inside. First, to what extent do I work on myself every day, regardless of whether I'm tired, busy, or not in the mood? Evaluate not your intentions, but your actions, because self-development isn't a desire, it's a habit. If you honestly tell yourself 4, that's already progress. Now you know where you stand. Second, To what extent do I use my job as an opportunity to train my character, skills, and mindset? Is it just a source of income, or is it your mental gym? Think about it. Every day either strengthens you or weakens you. Third, how clearly do I see who I want to become in 5 years? Not just what you want to have, but who you want to become. Because if there's no vision, the brain switches to survival mode instead of growth mode. Fourth, how well do my daily habits align with that goal? Not yesterday's, not tomorrow's, today's. Because those are the real builders of your future. If your goal is to be a leader, but you complain every day, you're building the wrong thing. Fifth, to what extent do I take full responsibility for my growth and stop blaming circumstances, bosses, the economy, or bad timing? It's a tough question, but it opens doors, because the moment you say, I am responsible, the whole world starts working with you, not against you. Now take a deep breath, not for drama, for clarity, because these numbers, they're not a sentence, they're a compass. They show you where you are, so you can see where you can and want to go. And if you want, you can return to these questions with a notebook after the video, write them down, reflect. This is your personal map. And if this format resonated with you, subscribe. Not for me, for you. So you don't miss future deep conversations. Leave a like. That's your way of saying, I'm ready to work on myself even while I work. And share this video with someone who, like you, wants more out of life. And now we've reached the end of this conversation, but perhaps the beginning of something much greater in your life. Because if you've listened this far, it means there's already something within you that won't let you rest. Something pulling you upward. And that's no coincidence. You're not a random viewer, you're a seeker. Someone who doesn't just want to survive, but to thrive. Not just to work, but to grow. You know what I've realized over the years? The most powerful changes aren't the ones that happen in a single moment. They're the ones that mature inside you day by day, step by step. Sometimes in silence, sometimes in struggle. Sometimes while doing a job you thought was temporary, but that very job becomes the incubator for a new version of you. Someone once asked me, Jim, how did you achieve success? And I answered, I simply stopped working only for others and started working on myself, even while doing an ordinary job. And with every day I became more valuable, first to myself, then to the market, then to the world. That's the essence. Work on yourself and you'll become someone who can't be ignored, someone who's indispensable, someone who's offered more because you've become more. Don't wait for change, be the change. Don't wait for chances, be the chance. And every working day will transform from an obligation into training, from routine into strategy, from employment into evolution. As I've always said, don't just work to live, live so that your work creates a new you. So stay the course, keep the pace, hold your vision. The future isn't waiting for just anyone, it's waiting for you.